There we
Go
go.
Cougs.
Thanks,
I'm,
Erica. I'm big behind your head. I can do the rabbit ear and the thing. No,
you could, you could.
the step.
What you can't see, Chris, is this room is full.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and no, that is awesome. I don't think we've ever had this many bodies present at once for Elevate. So you hit it on the head, Chris. They're here after a long semester.
Can I give one more number,
Yeah.
Erica? As of today, we're up 5.1% in retention year over year. Now, we are not going to end up 5.1%. Um, but I think if we look at the fall to spring numbers, it was a little less than a little less than 2% up. Um, we've heavily focused on retention. Obviously, teaching has a massive, massive implication on retention, and that's obvious. But we haven't even started some of the more advanced tools that we're working on this summer, some of the differentiating approaches to supporting students, either economically, from a fiscal perspective, all that kind of stuff. That's just people out there working and focusing on this and supporting students. That's faculty and staff moving the needle. And that's more students. We're talking literally, hundreds of more students who will be on campus this fall who would not have been in previous years. And it's activities like this, events like this. That's why we're moving that. We're already starting to see the effects. And again, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So it's great that the house is packed. It's great that this is getting so much focus. And go Cougs.
Go Cougs. Thanks for going off script, Chris.
All right. Thanks.
Cheers. All right, team. That was, I think that one made me feel a little inspired, actually. We don't normally clap for you, Chris, but that one was good. It's probably already gone.
I'll take the one time. So,
okay, good,
yeah,
good.
excited about it.
All right, team. Well, I'm glad we had Chris talk because I wouldn't have had anything nearly as inspiring to say to you. But it was a very heartfelt welcome. And I'm also very glad to have you here and to have this time to connect in a real way with folks that are committed to the same values that I have, which is inviting our students into these spaces and helping them grow to their full capacity. So welcome. Today, we've got a lot of cool programming. I wanted to start by showcasing a few of our faculty who are engaged in our effective teaching practices course that we have access to because we partnered with ACUE. So while I share a little bit about this course, if I could get my in-person panelists to come sit up at this table. So a little bit about ACUE. Way back in December of 2025, our university was approached with this invitation to partner with ACUE. And the partnership really consisted of an invite where they were going to give us 90 seats for free in this course, which lasts an entire year. And so we had such an overwhelming response. Our 90 spots filled quite quickly. And then ACUE gave us an additional 45 seats. So we have 135 faculty that are enrolled, and they've been participating since January. The course is framed around 4 major themes, which I can't see. Now I can. The first one is creating a productive, geez Louise, John, you're killing me. Creating a productive learning environment. This is not how you do it. Promoting active learning. That was what this cohort focused on this spring. Not everyone's done with the curriculum. Some folks are going to be finishing up over the summer. That's okay. So if you're logging in or you're in the room and you're one of those folks that hasn't completed all your modules, that's okay. It's a self-paced course. But then in the fall, they're going to pick up and learn more about inspiring inquiry and preparing our students as lifelong learners, and then designing learner-centered courses. So we've got many panelists here, and there's a couple that are joining us online, but I invited them to come and talk to you specifically about what was in the content for the first 2. So they're going to be talking about what they learned about fostering a productive learning environment, checking for student understanding and providing feedback. And then they're going to talk a little bit about facilitating engaging discussions and active learning in the classroom. So you can also talk about anything else that you learned. You don't have to be stuck to the things that I put for our panel. So what I'm going to do is stop sharing my screen so that we can see our panelists here. And how many? I think we have two that are joining. Yeah, Ashton and Emily are joining online. We're going to do everybody's going to quickly say who they are, where they are, starting with our online panelists, and then I'm going to pass this around so you can introduce yourselves. And then we're going to get into questions. Okay, so Ashton, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ashton Hyman, and I am an assistant professor of accounting at WSU Vancouver's campus.
Thanks, Ashton. And Emily, you're one of our panelists too, right?
Yes, good morning. I'm coming to you from the Spokane campus. I'm Emily Davies, an assistant teaching professor in the College of Nursing.
Awesome. Do I have any others online that I'm missing that are panelists? Okay. Then I'm going to start with Sara really quick and just do a whip around.
Yeah, Sara Whitley. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Sociology here in Pullman campus.
I'm Huiyun. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. I'm in the Pullman campus too.
Good morning. I'm Kate Watts. I'm a professor in the English department on the Pullman campus.
Good morning. I'm Amber Brown. I'm assistant kinesiology professor here at the Pullman campus.
Good morning, everyone. I am Nandita Biswas. I am associate professor, career track from mechanical and materials engineering.
Good morning. I'm Shawna Herzog, and I'm seeing that you see the back of my head right now. So I'm going to go ahead and come over here because that's not weird. Okay. I'm an associate professor in the Department of History. Love it.
So short. We're starting the panel around the topic areas for who begin. Types about fostering a productive learning environment and checking for understanding and providing useful feedback. So I'm just going to open it up. You know who's on what part of the panel, but I wanted to hear what kind of new strategies have you learned that are related to productive learning environments and checking for understanding? I don't know who's going first. This is awkward. We're going to have to be we'll figure it out. So go for it, Sara.
I think one of the most important takeaways I've had so far is thinking about different ideas of choice and providing different ideas for choice for students, as well as in terms of feedback. I think I overloaded students, giving them too many things to be working on. So really limiting the targeted feedback to one or two actionable items that students could work on. And then I could build on that through the rest of the semester and move on to the next most important thing to have them work on.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm very new to teaching. This is my second year serving as a faculty at WSU. So I'm still learning. The reason I joined this workshop is to increase my my knowledge about teaching. I think the good practice that I have this semester from the ACUE workshop is we can, I want to check the attendance for my student. Otherwise, in the end of the semester, I can only retain 40–50% of my original size. And I have them write a piece of notes in the end of the class. What is the modest point of this lecture? What is the take-home most important message you learned in this semester? So I read their the response in a piece of paper. This is on their own words, so they processed it with their brain, and then they use their own words to write it down. So I can achieve checking the attendance and then checking their learning progress at the same time. So especially for the modest point, from their response, I can tell, oh, I'm missing this part, so I can cover it in the next class. And then sometimes it's very inspiring to read the take-home message, because sometimes I invite guest speakers and then they got a lot of good words about their own understanding, and it's very pleasing to read their comments as well. Yeah.
One of the big takeaways for me this semester working through the different modules has been something I think I've struggled with for a long time, particularly in the global campus space. And it's that idea of recreating an online space that's asynchronous, where students can have conversations that maybe aren't totally about class. Right. So one of the recommendations, and I'm going to forget exactly which module it was in, was this idea of a discussion board that, you know, if you've taught for global, you're familiar with the questions for instructor. This was make it a water cooler discussion forum and reframe it as a space where students can ask each other, yes, things about class, but also, hey, aren't you also in this other class? And hey, could we study together? Or hey, what are y'all doing this weekend? You know, but it really could be their space. So just that little reframing that it's not questions for the instructor, it's really their space to communicate and share. And yes, an instructor could pop in and provide some guidance if needed, but really, again, a space where that conversation they would have had if they were in person, that they would have had those 5 or so minutes before class, where can we recreate that space or as best as we can in the totally online environment?
I love that too. That's good advice. One of the things I think for me is I have a tendency, I'm very task oriented and I'm a historian. So I'm like, today is this 500-year block, right? And if I get interrupted in my start to finish, I get kind of kerfuffled because I'm like, wait, they really need to know this happened, or otherwise their lives will be ruined and they'll never understand anything. But I think this helps me sort of step back. I obviously have learning goals, but maybe letting go of that timeline a little bit. The checking in was really eye-opening for me, that parking lot of putting questions that I didn't even think that they would even have. And then also my timing. I really focused on the active learning cycle. So in a 75-minute class, that means I'm going through 3 cycles I'm a kooky person, so I do weird 2-minute breaks. Like I have them stand up or I have them talk to each other about some random thing that they don't understand why it connects, but what it does is it changes their frame and moves them to a different task. So that timing, instead of just coming in and starting at, 500 BCE and getting to 1500, instead of just starting and stopping, there are like intentional cycles to my teaching now, which really has promoted engagement and also I think retention in my class. More people are showing up all the way to the end. My last day of class was full, which is really bizarre. So
one of the reasons that I wanted to take part in this program was to increase student engagement in the classroom. And a couple strategies that I found really helpful in that regard are cold calling with purpose and think, pair, share. I've really implemented both of those practices this past semester. And I find that if I start off by giving all of my students clear instructions about the purpose of those activities and the expectations around them, that it really does help increase equitable participation in the class. And it also allows for a quick check of understanding. And then you can address any misconceptions immediately that students might have. And then it also breaks up lecture a little bit. But yeah, those are two things that I've really found beneficial, at least for me this semester.
So I've been teaching here for 12 years. And when I started ACUE, I was thinking actually, okay, how much more that I need to learn, or maybe I know everything. So that's the mindset that I went. And actually very first thing that they taught us is about the syllabus. And it was really eye-opening. So I teach like 100 to 400 level class. So in my 100 level class, of course, retention is very important. So I really explained my syllabus all these years, like 45 minutes. So it was really eye-opening to see that how boring that was. So, so ACUE has module has really cool videos, shows how students are interacting and all that, and I totally can see what I did to them. So it was, so now I have a cool activity. I'll talk like just 10 minutes and they will do fun activity with the syllabus as a group. So that was like very first thing in the ACUE that really struck me. Also the student engagement. So theory-based class that I teach is very big, like 100, 120. So of course I have to give lecture, long lecture, it's 50 minutes class. So I also like heard that I really want them to know about like chunk of thing. Then I immediately ask, okay, tell me, tell me. But what I did wrong all this time, I did not give them time to think. So that was really, I did not even think about it after teaching this many years. Now I know that I should allow few minutes, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. So I really like that idea. I also, another thing that for the engagement, if you write a question at the beginning of the lecture and kind of they think through when you go through, that is also, I found it very, very helpful. All right.
Covered a lot. Quickly. So you touched on this already, how ACUE may have helped you refine your teaching. And especially for those of you who are seasoned instructors who knew it all when you came in, what other aha moments have you had as part of ACUE?
Quick recommendation. My we use this one on the table so Erica can hold on to that one. Making sure this is working.
Like a
Yeah.
ball?
Yeah, hot potato. I can leave that for whoever's up first.
Any aha moments?
I think one of my aha moments was in terms of ACUE talked a lot about purpose and being explicit with students. And I felt like I was doing that in my in-person classes, but not so much in my asynchronous online courses. So I spent time doing some short mini lectures and posting them for the online students that talked about the science of learning and gave them short articles that they could read on it. And again, that was something that had been missing from my online courses that I was already incorporating in my in-person. And I saw that as really useful for students. And I did have students that reached out to me that said they found those readings interesting, that they took away tidbits and pieces that they found useful on that. So just making sure that for as much as I'm being explicit in the in-person, that I'm mirroring that for the online classes and giving students those opportunities.
I think in any of my teaching, whether it's face-to-face or it's for global campus, if the discussion board is leading to a major project, I'm pretty good about giving some actionable feedback because I know where this is going. There's a draft that we're working on. There's some larger target we're reaching for. So I feel like I was pretty good there. But I think one of the aha moments for me was I could do better when it was more about reading and like understanding, or if it was more about something we had talked about in a lecture scenario or something that I wanted them to sort of stretch on. And so something after we talked about that in ACUE, I really, for the remainder of the semester, for every discussion board, tried to give them, whether it was for the next discussion board or if it was for that particular piece of content we were working on, that same nudge, right? Even though it wasn't a draft, even though there wasn't a bigger project. And I think that, like, I don't have measurable data, but my observation would be that it helped, that it mattered, that, I didn't have that same drop off in the discussion boards at the end of the semester. They get shorter and shorter as you get closer to week 15. That didn't really happen. I would say the week 15 discussion boards are just as developed as early in the semester. And I did see them able to take that knowledge and build it. And they were making, I think, connections better than in previous semesters.
Okay, I'm going to be not student-centered this time.
Oh, and Emily,
I actually found.
I forgot Emily had her hand up. So
Oh,
after you, Shawna.
Let's let Emily say something. I would love to hear her.
Thank you, Emily, for raising your hand.
Yeah.
It's awkward in this room.
Yeah, I just wanted to share an aha moment, and I really found that ACUE really backed off the Lift Fellowship as well. And really, the aha for me was failure was a learning opportunity and emphasized kind of the growth mindset in myself. I know I'm often encouraging students to embrace the growth mindset and that failure is a learning opportunity, but I found that for myself. I failed at one of the blocks was about providing feedback, and I tried in Canvas providing voice feedback. And I was really excited, and I felt like ACUE gave me the permission, to try new things, and I didn't do it well. And I think that's when I learned the most, is when I didn't do it well and I didn't quite understand it. Then I researched it more. Like, okay, it didn't work this time, so next time, do I want to try the video feedback? And I'm still playing with it, and now I'm thinking, for accessibility, how am I going to have, if I do audio or video feedback, how am I going to have the accessibility requirements as well? But just embracing that growth mindset in myself in my teaching was really helpful through the program so far.
Ashton has something to say.
Ashton, do you have anything that you want to add? We didn't.
Yeah, sure. I think, hi, everybody. So the reason that I decided to do this program is fundamentally, I want my students, I teach an intro to financial accounting and an intro to managerial accounting course. And I believe that these skills for business majors are incredibly important. And oftentimes my students who are not majoring in accounting don't necessarily realize how important they are. And so how can I do a better job of helping the lower performers in my class move towards the understanding of the higher performers? And so I'm really focused on the thing that I have taken away the most is how to engage in asking questions to my students in the classroom. I try and focus on some high-level questions over the course of my presentation because accounting can often fall into the routine of explaining a transaction. How do you journalize it? How do you post it to a ledger? What are the effects on the financial statements? And we don't spend enough time talking about why these rules might exist in the way that they do. And so this course has forced me to rethink how I go about engaging in those discussions. In particular, how much time I spend waiting for student responses. A big thing that the ACUE modules focus on is the wait time to allow students to think about the questions that you're asking. I already have some students that as soon as I ask a question, they already have a response, but those aren't really the students that I'm as worried about. I want to engage the students that might not be performing as well as I would like them to be performing. And so after I ask a question now, I take some deliberate time waiting for students to raise their hand or to think about a response. And I'm surprised by the students that do end up engaging. I've got some students that always are quick at the draw and have their hands up maybe before I finish the question. But I found that as I incorporated this intentional practice over the semester, I was seeing hands raised that I had never seen raised before by allowing them to have a little bit of extra time to think about the question and not automatically calling on the students that had raised their hand in the first second or two. And so I think that was something that was really, really easy for me to implement and has an impact on my classroom.
Ashton, I have a follow-up question. And if anybody else has follow-up questions, I'll need help seeing hands because I'm not good at screens and people. But my follow-up question is, Did you do anything to set the stage for your students to signal that you were going to be intentional in that way? I guess I ask because I can imagine, the student who's always raising their hand and you're kind of looking, and they're feeling like, why do you not see me? I'm right here. So how did you set the stage for that?
I didn't add any preamble at all, but I would acknowledge that student. If it was a student that had raised their hands many, many times in the past in prior weeks, which it was, I said, thank you. I indicated to them and say, thank you. I'm going to be calling on somebody else. Who else wants to answer this question? So that I could, first of all, acknowledge them, thank them for participating, and then also shift the focus pretty quickly away from them so that it's not embarrassing. The no wasn't something that was being focused on and an embarrassment, and instead sent the attention back to the students that could potentially answer this very, very interesting question.
I've got a follow-up question in the audience. Hold on. Yeah, but they can't hear you online here.
I will project. As somebody who teaches all levels, grad to undergrad, intro to, you get it. I was hoping you guys might talk about global campus because, for example, now that I'm teaching asynchronous on global campus after being an in-person teacher for over 20 some years, and my classes have doubled in size online. I'm wondering if maybe you could talk about strategies, particularly interactivity, because I designed curriculum this fall, which worked great except for the synchronous component, which obviously is asynchronous. So that is a part, the interaction that I'm struggling with. I'm an art teacher, so it's not as hard as it could be maybe in some other fields perhaps, but it still is a tricky balance. So thanks.
Anybody want to take that one?
Well, that was kind of part of history is kind of a difficult thing. Yeah, so in that way, when I'm actually thinking about redoing a global campus course right now with this in mind, because it can get pedantic, right? That discussion question, answer, and then respond to two of your colleagues. But then I have also experimented with taking those discussions out, and it's a correspondence course at that point, right? So it's really a difficult balance. So one of the things that I learned in ACUE and also just tried to experiment with is assigning discussion groups. So people then are no longer part of this anonymous list, but they actually have discussion buddies. And then also that discussion buddy changes. Because they also can get comfortable with those same 4 people, right? So, and it's easily done within Canvas, assigning people into groups. And then also what I've done is split up the discussion. So half of the discussion group answers this half, another half, and then in their responses, they have to synthesize, right? So it helps me get at some different skills, but also because they've done enough asynchronous learning at this point that they know I'm reading the discussion and I'm responding twice. And that's what I'm doing. And if they post a solid enough response, I mean, sometimes you can ask them, like you can program the discussion to not let them see anybody else's response until they respond. I mean, you can do those sort of things. But if we're looking for engagement and we're looking for them actually to sort of have that classroom experience, they would be forced to talk to people that they necessarily wouldn't select to right? They would be put into situations like that. And I think that there's lots of self-selection. The same people reply to the same. Mostly it's actually the early people respond to the early people, and the latter people respond to whenever they can, right? So this way, it not only pushes more people into the discussion earlier because they're not sure of who they're getting, right? Am I getting an early person or am I not? And then also it forces them, I think, to pay more attention to who they're talking to. And sometimes at the end of this semester, I played around with some of these this semester, and at the end, they said they liked that because they spoke with people that they normally wouldn't have spoken to. And I don't know what makes someone choose in an online environment, but clearly this forced them out of that. So those are some things that I did to.
I think kind of piggybacking off of what you're talking about, Shawna, there were a lot of things I think I was afraid to try in the online world that I had been doing in my in-person teaching for a long time. So like a jigsaw, you're our mini expert for this group in this thing, and you have a different topic and I have a different topic, and we have to come together and help each other understand. And I think I don't know why I was afraid to do it on global, but it turns out it works fine. Like you know, there's the one or two people that it's hard to get them sort of on board, but the other set of people, they're like, oh, we're doing it different. It's not the right one respond to two. I have to really focus on this question or this piece of the reading or whatever it is they're asked to do with the intent of helping someone else to understand. And they're going to ask me clarifying questions. They're going to ask me for an example. I'm going to ask them for more information. And we're trying to synthesize together. And I would say for the most part, it worked pretty slick. Like, I do think, to Shawna's point, they ended up, because I assigned groups and regularly changed them, they were having to communicate with students they maybe wouldn't have chosen, or, you know, they have buddies online too, right? Our global students are like, oh, I recognize you from that class. I'm going to talk to you. That disrupted it a little bit. And, you know, I think the early parts of the course, I think that those moments we talk about so much about building community in the classroom, that set that up too. I do think that this was an extra payoff or bonus from having done that early week 1 and 2 work and week 2 work, for them to trust each other, to get to know each other, so that they could say, actually, this section was really hard for me and I'm not sure I've got it right. So here's what I think is going on. Help me out, team. And they really did say, no, I think you do, but like, I think this part maybe means that. And they could start to like sort of negotiate that. And there was some trust there. So I would say that early semester work to build community and build trust among them, and not just among a couple of them, but across the board, that in our classroom, we can be wrong, we can make mistakes, we cannot get it, and we can say so even. Say, I'm not sure. Can you guys help me? Seemed to really pay off.
And I think building on both of those two also, like with discussions, for example, giving them some choice of if they are typing an answer, doing audio or video. I found myself with the online, I was typing, you know, I was writing everything and they were having to, so ACUE pushed me out of my comfort zone of try some audio with feedback, try some video and other capacities, and then providing students that opportunity. And I was surprised by how many students actually wanted to do those audios and videos, and they connected with each other in a different way than they had previously done. So that was nice, and also giving them choice on types of examples they could use, or connecting to their lived experiences, or even choice in terms of the prompt that they were responding to. And then when you respond to somebody else that answered a different prompt, and just mixing it up a little bit more. But students seem to really enjoy the audio and video component of it. And I saw them moving towards using that as a response more than as the course of the semester went on. So that was nice to see.
Giving a pause in case there are other questions. One thing I've been hearing from faculty across the board is concerns about student engagement. The observation that perhaps we haven't recovered fully from the pandemic, and that the students we have now are different than the students we had before. And I know that part of the first block for ACUE focuses on, you know, creating classroom culture, productive classroom cultures, but then they have a whole section that's about really that I would equate with student engagement. Like, how do you engage them in conversations? How do you get them engaged in class? I'm curious if you have any advice for folks. I mean, I heard a few of you say that my attendance didn't drop off like it used to. Holy cow. What other small moves have you been trying that you think have promise for reinvigorating our engagement with students?
Actually, this was my aha, actually. So this is And I think I'm going to say it in a different way because I think we spend a lot of time being student focused for obvious reasons, but also we forget that we have to care for ourselves, and especially if we're doing this for a really long time. And what I learned is that using these practices engages students and really takes some of the load off of me. So in the past, before I did this, it was sort of my job to come in and I had to like get through this material and make sure that if my students didn't know it, it was my fault, right? Like I was not clear enough. I was not doing all of these things. And that was actually why I did ACUE, was to figure out what I was doing wrong, right? And so what I learned in this, my aha moment, was engaging students more and making them more active in this process, asking them is not only easier and makes my job more fun. It doesn't make it easier, but it makes it more fun and more enjoyable. But then also, to your point, Erica, our students are always changing. Whether we would have had a pandemic or not, students are always changing. And what this allowed me, it gave a thread or an avenue to let students input what they wanted to learn. They aren't super stoked about 19th century British Empire in Southeast Asia. Like I spent 13 years of my life focused on that. And I was like, how come you don't want to listen? What are you talking about? But giving them an opportunity to tell me what parts of, like, there's a lot of history that they could learn about that they might be interested in. And instead of me just getting in the bus and driving, stepping aside and doing these small activities, doing the cycle and engaging like when their attention span is highest, paying attention to these small things lets them drive the bus a little more. And I'm learning things about time periods. I'm like, yeah, I never thought actually even to look into this for you. I will. And has also changed classes that I have delivered several times, which I'm sure, you're like, I can't talk about Marco Polo one more time, but actually I can, because these students have different questions, right? So this really has given me an opportunity I am the teacher and I'm responsible for the types of questions. I really appreciate what Ashton was talking about, like offering really important, engaging questions, but also letting them ask questions and being willing and flexible to sort of move your content with their intention or with their interests, I guess. So.
A couple of things that I've done this semester that I think have really helped with student engagement is, like Ashton was saying, just increasing the wait time. I am historically bad with that because I hate awkward pauses and awkward silence. So, I would just blurt out the answer if students raise their hand quick enough. And so just being really intentional the past semester, spring semester, about letting appropriate wait time for students to respond to questions, maybe even take a minute to chat with their neighbor. And then I really found that has helped increase participation in class and has let maybe the quieter voices in class really felt like they're heard. So that's definitely one thing that I've done. And then another thing is obviously we all set learning objectives for students at the beginning of the semester, what we want to cover in class, the goals of the class. But I have started letting them be involved in how we're going to get to those learning goals and the types of activities that we're going to have in class, whether they want more lecturing or more group work. They almost always want more group work. And so just kind of involving them in that process and how we're going to get to where we're going is also really helped with engagement in the classroom as well.
Yeah, I think from this ACUE training, I recognize is also a aha point for me. Like I teach I teach a course with 75 minutes, and then this ACUE training makes me realize that I don't have to talk for 75 minutes straight in a lecture. Yeah, I used to do that, and then I stand up, and then I would get exhausted by the end of the day. This is really literally what happened in my first semester. I cannot do anything else. But in terms of student engagement, we can pass some of the activities to them so that they can get more engaged and then lead the discussion, lead the questions in their own way. Of course, we group them in different groups, and they can work with their classmates. So one thing I'm still trying to implement in my future classes is I want to set some of the activities before each lecture, and then have maybe 3 to 5 discussion questions designed before each lecture, so that when the we have a lot of dynamics in each class, but when the atmosphere and the opportunity is appropriate, I can pull up these questions and give them the discussion topic so that they can work on by themselves. So one example I did in this semester is we have some in-class practice problems. So I cover some of the theories and then show them how to do the calculation, and I give them 15 minutes to work on the in-class question, in-class practice questions or problems. And I walk around and see how they process the knowledge, and I give them some hints. And after the 15 minutes, I show them the solution, something like that.
Ashton or Emily, do you have anything that you want to add?
Not myself at the moment.
Okay, no worries. One thing that I just want to shift about your experience in ACUE. So you've talked a lot about how it's impacted your teaching and some tips that you've tried, but one of the facets of the ACUE program is that the faculty are engaging with the material in Canvas in cohorts of 45 faculty. And a key component of that is discussion with faculty colleagues. So I'm curious, how has that experience shaped your reflection on teaching, if at all?
It was definitely very fun experience for me. And it is really good to see that discussion, how oftentimes faculty, right, they are trying already something for a certain different way, but this worked, this did not work, and things like that. Very helpful tips to learn. Also, the video, ACUE module has videos, and we need to observe and analyze. Very helpful. We can see that what went wrong, what worked well. Also, if you can literally have a discussion in there. So that I really liked it. Even I connected with the different faculty member. Actually, different faculty member contacted me, say, hey, I'm taking the ACUE module and I'm working on this. What do you think about XYZ? I really like it. So that was it. So not only we are having a group of people thinking about the same thing online, also in person. So it was very helpful.
I honestly being a part of this pointed out what I didn't want to do in my online class. To your point about like doing different things, the discussions get pedantic and are really boring for me because I know what I'm going to do. And so being a part of this, while each one of the modules is super fun, and I also agree, like I scan through them and I'm learning and I find them valuable, I can just put myself, I'm probably the worst example of that student. If my attention is not held, then I'm gone. And I'm over the question. So I go and I do it very quickly. I'm usually one of the first people that posts, and I'm in and I'm out, and I do it on my time, and I've checked box, bum. So now I know that's what my students are doing, right? So if I've done that and I know that my students are doing that, then I really have in my head been trying to find ways to mix up that discussion component, because
I am of the firm belief that you can't get rid of it, but it really can get so boring. So being a part of this really did highlight that for me, of what my students are probably feeling. So I changed a lot.
I think the first couple of weeks were kind of humbling. I took a single asynchronous course myself as a student when I was in graduate school, so a hot minute ago, and it was in Blackboard. And at the time, I remember thinking, holy smokes, this thing is text heavy, right? Like, and it was one of those classes where you read everything. Sometimes you'd open something and you'd have to scroll and scroll and scroll. And so, AOI and my experiences teaching online had already broken me of that, right? Like, no, you have to break it up. But I think the consistency of the pattern, I knew what to expect. I sort of knew what but each module was different. The ideas that were emerging were different. But the basics of engaging with it stayed consistent was actually really nice, because a lot of times when I was getting to this, I was very tired. I'd already taught all day. I'd already, given feedback on a bunch of discussion boards or other things. And so the predictability of it, that way I'm like, no, it really is important. Like, you really do have to do these things. They matter to students. And then I just, my appreciation for all of the other faculty who were sharing really amazing things they were doing in their classrooms, whether they were happy with them or they were still sort of frustrated with one aspect of it. I think the way we were able to piggyback off of each other's ideas, the way, one person would share something and be like, oh, okay, what can I do with that? Is there a way for me to take that and add it to this thing? Or it was exciting, because I think so many times, even on campus, we're in our silos a little bit, right? And so this, there's names in our campus. I've never met these people before. And so that's been really exciting. So there are names I recognize and names I don't. And to be able to share across disciplines in that way has been, I think, really helpful.
Here's the part oh, go for it, Emily, go for it.
I just want to piggyback how humbling a reminder of the student experience it was, putting in my calendar when the modules open up, when my homework's due, and just reminding me okay, ACUE's on Canvas, just like our students have Canvas. So managing that on the student side, being able to see when my grades are up and I get comments on things, it's just a great reminder of what students experience. I think was helpful for me in just the excitement, other faculty have shared, of other faculty are excited to learn and grow their teaching and learning, which I think is just inspiring too.
So I think we're at the part of the panel that folks are most interested in, and that is, what can they take back with them? What's something that they might think about doing in the fall or next spring? So what kind of tiny teaching tips do you have for your colleagues? Just a small thing that they can try, and what they can accomplish by trying it.
I think that one of the things that I really took away from ACUE, this first half of ACUE, is, and I think someone at the round table in person already talked about this, but not just thinking of myself as the source of information, that I have knowledge that I'm trying to provide to them, but I can make my life a little bit easier, and as well as help the students learn more if I think about myself as a facilitator oftentimes, that I give them assignments, allow them to work on those assignments, group with each other, ask each other questions, and have myself be the knowledge expert that's floating around the room and responding to questions in real time, instead of me feeling the need to organize all of my students and have them focus on me explaining some concepts. I can provide them some baseline information and then provide them a task to do, and then circulate in order to facilitate, in order to help them accomplish their goals. I think that is something that was a frame of mind that I hadn't really established. And I think that that has been really, really helpful over this last semester.
I think for my tiny teaching tip would be on feedback. I really enjoyed the module that was on feedback, and I did spend a lot of time suggesting to students on your next submission, try this or try that. But one thing that ACUE talked about was presenting students with a question as feedback, and I hadn't really tried that yet, but it is quick, easy to do during feedback. And the couple times I did try it, I saw some great revisions from students in the next project that they presented. Yeah, so asking questions for feedback.
Yeah, well, my tip, I think I just mentioned, I think I'm gonna we as the instructor at some point need to change the mindset that we are not gonna pouring the knowledge to our students, but instead having their attention, grabs their attention is the critical thing for us. So this means taking breaks, passing them questions so that they can spark their ideas of the response, using their own words to summarize the information, stuff like that. So whatever we can think of to grasp their attention, and then yeah, it would be great practice for us. And then personally, I think after the ACUE training, I got lots of the information from the website. I downloaded in my folder and I use it as a toolbox or pedagogy textbook. So I want to, for my personal goal, I want to, every time I start a new course or start a new semester, I want to go over the information and then think if there's anything I can implement in terms of like a syllabus, classroom activities, discussion questions that I can design per topic, course topic, and prepare them before the semester starts. Yeah.
Create spaces that are low stakes and okay for students to not get it right or not know it yet, where maybe it's not all the way to normalizing failure, but it's normalizing that it is work to understand something and that we might need other people to understand something and that that's okay. And I think just creating a space where their grade's not really in jeopardy, right? You get your points. It's not about you got it right today. We'll get there. But I think normalizing that it's a process and that it's steps to get to understanding, particularly whatever it is in your discipline or your course, that's the challenging, hard things for students to get. If you've been at this a while, you know what those places are. As much as students have changed, in a lot of ways, those things haven't changed. Those things have stayed, at least for me, fairly consistent, what they are. And so creating that space for students before a major assessment, before they actually have to know it or get it mostly right, that they can be stretching and take risks and chances, and that's okay.
I love that. That's great. The two things really quickly, teaching tips that I learned that to take away is the first thing was a parking lot. I never used that before, and it was the way for me to realize that I was going too quickly through material. So it's a place where you can do it anonymously or not anonymously, whichever you like, but having a place where students can put remainder questions after a particular lecture or a particular lesson, so that you know, either it can tell you what you didn't cover correctly or well enough, but it also can tell you what remains in their head, right? What you may not have thought. Like I kept telling you, like not everybody thinks that the British Empire in Southeast Asia is so interesting, but they might think that the Dutch Empire in Southeast Asia is interesting, and they would ask about that, and I wouldn't know unless I had that. So the parking lot was really great for me.
Where was your parking lot?
It was on Canvas. I created it was just open the whole semester, and it was, actually I had two. There were times where I used the parking lot as attendance, and then other times where I used an anonymous parking lot. Either way, if I used it for attendance, I told them that, right? And I did get different answers when their names were attached. But I did often anonymous as well, and I really liked those because I got more creative answers, I think. They stepped out of their box, I guess. So I definitely will always have that. And then the second thing that I didn't expect loving, because I'm not very social media inclined, I'm a pretty heavy Luddite, actually. And so what I chose to do is I called Teach the Teacher, and I wanted them to translate this historical period to me in their own language. And so what we did was a whole week of them doing a market haul from like the Silk Roads and Indian Ocean. So they would come and they would do their like nail clicking and whatever that is that they do. And it was really fun. Yes, that, exactly, that. All of those things, which I learned a lot, and they joked about how old Herzog is. And I would tell them like, yes, Kubla Kai and I definitely had lunch. And that was great, and they loved it. And also I learned that they really were paying attention. Like they got details that other students in the past wouldn't have. So those two things, I would say, a parking lot and letting them teach me what they know in their own language, right? Not having them regurgitate what I'm expecting them, but letting them teach me. And y'all, some of those headlines from Marco Polo and Ibn Battuta traveling they were brilliant, like publishable headlines. And I could not have asked for a more fun day, like having students unpack that. And then they would correct each other. No. That's not where amber comes from. Amber comes from Indonesia, right? Like they were doing that, and it was beautiful. So those are two things. That's awesome.
That's really awesome. One of the things, I don't teach any online classes, so but for my in-person classes, I really came into this wanting to increase student engagement and participation. And so I really like the Think, Pair, Share, just because it breaks up lecture for one. And if you give students enough wait time, they can chat and they come up with great answers to your questions. And then sometimes they'll piggyback off of each other, and then we get like a whole class room discussion going. I also like it because it's an easy way to check for student learning if they're picking up what you want them to. And then I like it because it's a versatile technique that you can use in small classrooms, large classrooms. You can use it online. You can use it in classrooms like this where collaboration is easy, or you can use it in like traditional theater style classrooms where collaboration is harder. So I think it's good. And it's easy to implement, so it doesn't take a lot of time as well.
What do you think the key is to a good Think, Pair, Share?
I've learned that again, wait time, it really helps a lot. Like I said, I used to be terrible at that, but I really tried to focus on that this semester. And that's really helped. And one thing sometimes I do, I teach smaller classes, so this might be easier in a smaller class like mine, but sometimes I'll have students sit in different areas, so they'll chat with different people. Or if we have a little extra time, I'll have them, like before the Think, Pair, Share, I'll have them stand up and go to different, switch seats. So they're not always talking to the same person. So I found that has also helped students get different perspectives and be able to bounce ideas off of people they might not talk with on a regular basis. But yeah.
So one very easy thing that you can implement is first day of the class, you can, of course, there's a syllabus, first or second day. Like you can set your expectation through community contract. Like you see your students and you say, okay, you have to come to class on time. You have to turn in all the assignments, things like that. You can ask a student and you can build that contract in front of them. And also like maybe once in a couple of weeks, you pull it up, show it to them, remind them so that they know that it's not okay to come to class 20 minutes late, things like that. It's your expectation. And doing it first or second day, it actually sets the class environment really well. And they know that they are accountable. I think this is very easy, simple thing. It will not take too much of your time. And incorporating group discussion, that's definitely very easy thing to do. Just one big thing that you need to pay attention to, I think, as a facilitator, you probably don't want to dominate. You need to let them take care of the discussion part. These two things, I think, very easy to implement.
Any additional tiny teaching tips online for our online panelists?
I just wanted to piggyback on that as far as for a tiny teaching tip for groups. And I really benefited from the module about groups and setting group norms. So I'd encourage you, if you have group work, to have the groups have a group contract or group norms. And we did fun things like come up with a fun group name. So in nursing, lots of them did fun things like Code Blue or Ivy League or fun healthcare names. They came up with commonalities in their group that were non-nursing related or healthcare related, which were fun. And they had to also describe how they were going to handle conflict. So similarly, kind of mid-semester, we came back to this group norms paper and they reflected on it. And the interesting thing too about our group work is we spanned across 3 campuses. So they had to work with people that were not in their location in person, and really having me be able to emphasize, you know, we get to learn from these different locations and what healthcare resources they have, really helped with them embracing group work.
All right, well, we're getting close to the end of our time for the first session. I just want to open it up to any questions or comments. How much wait time, Ashton? How much do I wait?
Few more seconds.
A few more seconds. Okay, still waiting. John.
Something that I think all panelists talk about the sort of the student-teacher distinction that
just so they can see online.
I really appreciated the sort of the shared theme of the student-teacher distinction not always being so hard and fast, especially because, you know, we're always learning and students are always learning, and the more often that happens together, I think the better the experience is for everyone. So I really appreciated that very much.
Any last thoughts from any of our panelists? Any parting words?
Oh, there's a question.
Oh, because we have people online that need to be able to hear us. I know you all can project your teachers.
I think you had mentioned, or somebody had mentioned having 2 aspects of a discussion happening, and then the students had to synthesize both aspects. Can you give us a specific example of that so I can be more clear about that?
Sure. Here's a really kind of like, I think, easy version of it, or one that I think will illustrate, and then maybe you can run with it. The reading that we did had sections and very distinct sections. So I want to say it had kind of 4 main points that it was making. So I put the students in groups of 4. They had assigned groups. They knew who they were responding to. So in the discussion board, I made like group 1 and it had their names, group 2 and it had their names. And if you were the first person listed, you had section 1, you know, second name, you had section 2. And they had more or less the same questions for each section, but they didn't need to answer for all 4 sections. They were answering for their section specifically, which meant they drilled in more, right? So if you have 250 words to do this work in, what you might say about a page and a half of text is more than you would have said about 10 pages of an article. And so step 1 was to post by a certain date, answering those questions for your section. Step 2 then was to review what the other students in your group had said and to respond. Ask them questions. If it's clear, can you provide an example about what they're talking about? If you can't, can other members of the group? So they had kind of a bevy of options after the initial post. Step 2 had, and then step 3 was to come together as a group, and could they then explain how the sections work together to get to the author's final point, and could they make some connections back to previous conversations? And they needed to do that work together. And that was where they really had to be on time with the previous pieces. And I think they felt a sense of responsibility by and large, right? There's always one or two, but by and large, they felt a certain responsibility to each other to get those initial posts in so that they could do the harder task of bringing it together. So I gave them a series of steps. I reminded them via announcements, okay, step 2 is coming up. Make sure you get those posts in so that you can do that work. Step 3 is coming up. So I'd give them, 48 or so hours lead time across the week with reminders of what those were. I do think for me, because it was sort of a 3-step process, that it was important that step 2 and step 3 had options for how they could engage with their group members. But by the end, right, those bringing together, they were sort of mini experts in their section. And so they really could help each other with that understanding. If someone was kind of really challenged by it, I saw some really great, well, I think when the writer says this, and they drop a quote from the article, I think that means this, or I think an example, and they gave way, to y'all's point, way better examples than I could have given. I think that meant more to them. So again, I think I'm probably in the Luddite zone. So, they were drawing from things on TikTok and other places that I have no engagement with. But as they explained, because they had to explain, that was key. You couldn't just say the example, you would explain the example. I was like, yeah, no, that sounds right. I think that is an example of what we're talking about that I didn't even know existed. Again, choice remained, I think, important there. And I usually gave them 2 or 3 options for how they could do those next steps. And they were great about it. This was a gen ed course, by the way, too. So they weren't in the major, they were just doing their thing. And I think that the final thing I was going to say was be brave, actually. I think this gave me some permission to take some risks as a teacher that maybe I hadn't taken in the past, sort of knowing, maybe my instruction set won't be perfect for this. But either they'll give me feedback on it directly by asking questions, or I'll get feedback via what they create and produce. And that's okay too. Like if it didn't go the way I thought it would go, okay, well, we'll get back on track. I can still revise for next week or 2 weeks from now or the next unit. I can make videos that clarify, that give them additional information. It's gonna be okay. So a little bit of didn't do exactly what I thought it would do, but we got somewhere all the same. So I think a little bit of letting go of control, kind of, I think, to Shawna's point.
I have a raised hand. Teresa?
Hello, I think some of the panelists know me. I'm an instructional designer here at Global Campus. And I was just jumping in to kind of see what some of the responses were for campus-based courses too. I think one of the main items that possibly was missed for student engagement is at the beginning of the course, get to know who you're teaching for that term. It's different for classes. Sometimes you'll have a class full of seniors or a class full of juniors, or sometimes you have a huge mix. Get to know them with an introduction survey. Now, this doesn't have to be a, how many kids you got, or, what is your family like, or where do you live? It's more of a, why are you taking this course? What's one thing that you really would want to learn in this course? What interests you? Now, when you take that information and you travel with it through the class, letting the students know that you've read this and you've read their responses, really engages them, because it shows the students that you are listening to them, that you know them, and they will be more engaged into the course. In Global Campus courses, it works really well. It also is great for the teacher so that they know, what are the students really interested in? And then your pedagogy rolling through could be twisting a few things to align with their interests in the course and stuff. That really engages students too, for talking strictly engagement strategies here too. And the choice, I just want to kind of make a comment about choice. Choice is huge, especially in adult learners. when they know that they have a little control over their learning, giving them choice on how they submit or what they submit really helps with engagement too.
Thanks, Teresa. Well, I want you all to help me thank our panelists for being here today and sharing their experiences.
Thank you.